Hello team, welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan MS Pierce. This is a Ukraine War update extra video where we're going to talk about the Yelabuga drone factory in the Republic of Tatarstan, some 1,200 kilometers from Ukraine, something along those lines in terms of distance. It is producing, I showed you a video earlier today, the full length version of this one, about almost 3 minutes of video of a very slickly produced one of a massive drone factory that is producing phenomenal numbers, it appears, of these very potent Grand 2 or Shahed 136 drones. Shahed 136 is the original Iranian version. It's now the sort of Grand designation. That's the Russian. I don't know whether it's under license. Anyway, the production of the original Iranian one. Now, this is a huge setup which may well still be employing or using the slave labor of local 17-year-olds in the college, from the college, I think, next door. Also, there was talk of recruiting African women as well, attracting them to come and work in Yelabuga. And of course, the rumors of 25,000 North Koreans coming over to see how they make them, take that knowledge back to North Korea to produce them back in North Korea, probably for the Russians as well back there. So this is a hub that is a very serious threat to Ukraine, because there is talk. Christian Freuding, German Major General of the Bundeswehr, said they're expecting 2,000 drones to be sent simultaneously at some point going forward. So the Ukrainians really need to do something about this. This is target number one in my books and has been for some time. So the question is, why hasn't it been completely taken out? Well, it has been actually struck a number of times going back a couple of years. We can see evidence of it being hit. When was this? April in 2024, a big Foxbat plane drone actually came down and hit it. Quite a large explosion, but it actually went in between two rows of buildings and then basically blew up or damaged a set of dormitories there. It didn't really affect the manufacturing facility at all, sadly enough. In fact, here's another one from June this year. Yelabuga factory, smoke around it, so I think it was hit in some way, but it's difficult to know what the damage assessment is or was. And then back in April, a Ukrainian drone outmaneuvers two Russian air defense missiles, probably Pantsir S1, and flies further to successfully strike a Shahed drone factory in Yelabuga, Russia-occupied Tatarstan, so on and so forth. So it is clear that drones can reach there, but we don't know what the air defenses are. And I'd imagine, since it's such a sensitive and important place, there will be some considerable air defenses. Now, there are some open source intelligence threads that show you potential for air defenses there. I mean, if you just put in Yelabuga strike into Twitter, you can see a number of times where it has been attempted to be hit. There's the damage to the dormitories. You can see you've got a line of dormitories here, and I think there's a kind of roadway here, and then the other side there's another line, and unfortunately the plane drone landed in the middle there and didn't really do significant damage. That was April the 2nd, 2024. I don't know if that was the first time it's hit, actually, or whether there's one before that. But that was significant because that was one of the first times we were like, oh, they can send drones an awful long way. It's over 1,000 kilometers. And now it's been hit a few times. Indeed, that's the wreckage of that particular drone, that plane drone, the Foxbat, or A-22 Foxbat, yeah. 1,200 kilometers deep into Russia. Okay, so let's look at part of a much longer thread geolocating Russian air defenses inside Russia. So this is Blinska saying the Alabuga drone factory in Yelabuga, Republic of Tatarstan, Russia, which produces Garand 2 or Shahed 136 drones, has at least 3 ramps for air defense systems, likely Pantsir S1s. In June 2024, one had an additional tower with a satellite dish on top. And you can see these ramps, potential for, that seems to be the tower and with the dish on top, potential for air defense systems to be placed there, even if they are not there in those particular images. At least not, I don't know about the first one, whether, yeah, there's a vehicle there, or is that building? It looks like I don't know. Anyway, potential for Shaheds, Pantsir air defense systems there. 30 kilometers south, it says in another post, there is evidence of Shaheds south of the Shahed drone factory. There is a ramp with a Pantsir S1 air defense system and a radar, a Nebo U possibly, at the oil refinery of Nizhnekamsk, again in Tatarstan, and it could be the case of sharing air defenses across a couple of sensitive targets, such that these air defenses at the oil refinery could well be put to good use against incoming drones that might head just over here or past here to Yelabuga. So there will be air defenses there. It's a long way away, and it's a massive facility now. It has grown in size quite considerably. So you're going to need a lot of munitions really to take it out in any significant way. Now, Tatargami has done a thread usefully on this, because I've been talking about this a number of times recently. Why is it still standing? So in light of recent photos and videos drawing public attention to Shahed drone production, a common question has emerged, says Tatargami. Why can't Ukraine simply strike the facility? Hit the archer, not the arrow. In other words, you want to destroy where these munitions are coming from, not the munitions when they are flying over Ukrainian airspace. The answer, however, is more complicated than it seems. Here are a few key points. So the drone production site is located more than 1,200 kilometers from Ukrainian territory. It's not a modest workshop. The facility occupies roughly 160,000 square meters with additional ongoing expansion. And when you go back to this video, you can see the sheer scale of some of the buildings here inside. You know, these are huge warehouses, a number of different places, clearly a very extensive network of sorry, it's not very good resolution there, extensive network of different workshops and assembly plant, etc, etc. Anyway, the facility occupies roughly 160,000 square meters with additional ongoing expansion. Any drone capable of reaching that distance must carry a significant fuel load, which in turn limits its payload capacity. So in order to get that far, you need a lot of fuel, and if you're going to carry a lot of fuel, you can't carry the weight of extensive, a massive payload of explosives. So you have to limit the explosives. It's a trade-off, isn't it? So in short, drones that can fly that far typically can't deliver the kind of payload needed to inflict serious or lasting damage on a facility that big. Ideally, targets like this should be neutralized through carpet bombing or multiple missile strikes aimed at production bottlenecks. At present, Ukraine lacks the capacity to conduct such operations, though that may change as its missile capabilities evolve. An internal sabotage or spiderweb style operation targeting key components of the facility is theoretically possible. However, such attacks alone are unlikely to halt production permanently. At best, they would cause temporary disruption and are difficult to replicate again. Unfortunately, something like Operation Spiderweb isn't ideal for a place like that. Those small FPV drones are great for knocking out an individual plane. They can do enough damage to a plane to render it, inoperable, but to a massive network of manufacturing facilities, FPV drones, even 100 FPV drones, are not going to do the sort of damage that you really, really need. So he continues, the phrase kill the archer, not the arrow, may sound compelling when used for bombers, but not so much for the production facility. In addition to the production, Russia has dispersed launch sites. Rudimentary setups often consist of dirt roads long enough to launch a drone. Striking launch areas would have little effect unless Ukraine could hit multiple sites consistently day after day. Storage sites near the launch areas could be targeted, but even a successful strike would likely destroy only a portion of the drones stockpiled for a single day. The task isn't impossible, and Ukraine may yet find a way to destroy the facility, but it's difficult. Its difficulty is often underestimated, especially by those who believe a single successful strike would be enough to fix it. Unfortunately, reality is more complicated. So when I've suggested this before, I've been talking about like 100 drones. Like, don't send 100 drones to 10 different places on one night, so each place gets 10. You'll be able to shoot them down. Yelabuga needs 100, 200 drones. I would afford it that much attention. It's that important. I would put 200 drones and make sure that that place is leveled. Now, even with 200 drones, you're wondering how many would get through, what the damage would be to the facility. I mean, you'd hope it would be fairly decent. Depends if things can catch fire. But you've got these big warehouses, big roofs, that you could do a lot of damage cosmetically, but maybe not fundamentally to the machinery. But reality is more complicated, as Tatarigami says here. A good question has been raised. How many Tomahawk missiles would it take to neutralize such a facility? Considering their payload and the number of targets, you likely would need about 1 missile per small facility and 2 or 3 for the larger ones, totaling around 20 to 25 missiles. Since these are cruise missiles, relatively slow and flying a long distance, you'd probably want to triple that number to account for potential interceptions. The strike should also be coordinated with drones and decoys to overwhelm enemy air defenses. In other words, Ukraine needs a lot for such a scenario, but it is doable. Some questions for Tatarigami here. Operations like Spider-Web, he answers to a question, take a lot of time and effort. Destroying substations and transformers would likely disrupt production temporarily, but the Russians have the capacity to repair and replace those components. Facility destruction is definitely preferable. And the cost, he says, range probably for between 35 and 100k for the Garand drones. There are other versions as well, the jet versions. How many Tomahawks would you say? He says, I'd estimate about 24 Tomahawk missiles could neutralize a facility. However, given the high likelihood of interceptions, the initial salvo would need to double or triple that number plus a supporting wave of drones, although that's back of a napkin sort of approach. Okay. And then John Ridge here, who is a weapons expert, says, an underappreciated problem is the scale of the Alabuga production halls, and it makes them inherently resilient to damage. Completely destroying a facility would likely require 1 or 2 dozen 200-pound weapons or several dozen 2,000-pound, 1,000-pound weapons. So, those are some big bombs, and you're not really going to get bombs near there, right? So, I mean, you're talking about cruise missiles, ballistic missiles of significant payload, and a lot of them to destroy. I mean, if you think, it depends if these are loaded with warheads, which is unlikely. I'm sure they would have separate facilities, and the warhead facility would be much more protected, maybe. But anyway, you can imagine a missile coming down, and even if it gets through something like a broach 2-stage warhead that kind of explodes on the outside of a building and then explodes again with its second kind of warhead at its target area. But even if you took that out, what you're doing is you're just taking out like that can all be replaced. Those are just people assembling stuff, and you'd be taking out a number of these Girans or these Shaheds, but nothing more. It's the production facilities that have some of the key machinery that you really want to take out. And I was suggesting this morning that the Ukrainians probably realise that they are less able to take out a facility like this. It's just too far and needs too many strikes. That they are attempting to hit areas of the supply chain. So if this facility needs microchips or warheads, explosives, Ukrainians might be thinking that it's easier to strike facilities that make those, that are closer to Ukraine, that have less air defense protection around them. So they are, it appears, hitting the supply chain upon which the final assembly is contingent. Visioner has said here for two, and this is slightly connected. So alongside my questioning why Ukraine hasn't yet taken this facility completely out, I've also been talking about what's been going on for the last 2 or 3 days, but actually last couple of weeks, where the Ukrainians don't seem to be hitting the Russian targets inside Russia as effectively as they once were. What's happening there? Russians getting better at shooting down the drones. Is OPSEC an issue where the punishments for those publishing on social media strikes has been increased, so people are not publishing the data, the battle damage assessments effectively. enough? Like, why is it that we're not seeing evidence of Ukrainian strikes as much as we used to? Visioner says this, and it's worth taking this into account. For 2 days now, Ukrainian forces have been continuously launching large waves of kamikaze drones towards various regions of Russia, including Moscow, and there are several reasons for this strategy. First, the Ukrainians aim to overload Russian air defense systems while simultaneously identifying their weak points. This helps them determine and prepare safe corridors for potential major strikes in the future. So remember, some time back, the Russians were doing this a lot, and I was saying, why are the Russians using a whole bunch of drones here, spreading it all out, and not doing an overwhelming attack on one particular place, like I suggest for Yelabuga? And the rationale could well have been, and probably was, that they send a lot that aren't so effective for a period of time as a way of just working out where the Ukrainian air defenses are. So you're sacrificing these drones to get a sense of where the air defense systems are, so that you can do one of two things: one, take out the air defense systems, so then they become the targets, or two, work out where the air defense systems aren't, and there's your safer route, or a combination of both. Visiono continues, you might recall the German General Freuding confirmed that German Ukrainian long-range missiles will soon be striking deep inside Russian territory. These drone attacks are essentially laying the groundwork for those strikes, helping to map out the battlefield and identify the most effective missile routes. And of course, there is some confusion as to what Freuding is talking about with regard to German-funded Ukrainian long-range weapons, whether they are missiles or whether they are funding Luti drones. And if it's Luti drones and he's talking about a high 3-digit number of those, then that's not as good as, say, cruise missiles and ballistic missiles, arguably. But if they are going to have a load of those Luti drones, then you're wanting 200 of those to be sent at Yelabuga. So that would be good news if they really focus on Yelabuga. It is a shame that this facility is still standing and producing as many drones for the Russians as it is. I'll be interested to see what your thoughts as to why it hasn't been hit significantly. I mean, it has been hit, but again, just hitting it once every blue moon with the odd drone is not going to seriously impede the manufacturing, and it's more likely that they are sounding out what air defenses there are around Yelabuga. But yeah, let me know what you think. I'm hoping that with the German-funded munitions, that Yelabuga is going to be one of the first places to be overwhelmed and taken out. But we'll have to wait and see. Take care. Speak to you soon.